Okay, we're here at the end of the session. This is the third time we've attempted this video. Hopefully this one works. This is Odessa and Albus's roadmap to success. Now, I'm going to start off by talking about the end of the last video, the video above. If you notice, it kind of abruptly stopped. She started going after the neighbor's dog, and so we had to stop and do what we had to do. But basically, the last 2 points I was going to make is on the walk, what I'd like the Guardians to do, we talked about the structure walk, and we can do the structure walk and do them as I talked about in that video. But one of the things I'd like the Guardians to do for a week, each Guardian, I would like them to walk one dog once a day, and you can swap dogs every other day so you're practicing. But basically what we're going to do is in between every driveway, we're going to stop somewhere randomly. Stop, tell the dog to sit. Pop the treat in your mouth and say sit, then continue walking. So if we do that twice between every driveway and we just walk just literally around one block, that'll probably be practicing the sit 50 or so times. I'd also like the Guardians to practice the U-turn once per block. So once on this block, once on that block, or whichever direction you go. So remember the U-turn, where if the sidewalk is going this way and I'm walking down with the dog and the dog's on this side, I'm going to turn sideways to the sidewalk, and as I turn, I'm going to hold that treat here, and the dog's going to do that. As soon as the dog walks towards it, I'm going to take another step, and then now we're facing that way, and then I pop the treat in the dog's mouth, and I say the word turn. Then I'm going to take about 4 to 8 paces that way, turn again, and go back in the original direction. So we want to do this, this is our plan B, but we want to do it at times where there's nothing around so that when we do see another dog or some of these dogs may react to, we have a plan B built in. Now the neighbor next door, who's a really nice guy, you know, one of his dogs is about her size, and that's the one that both of them have got into it. But if he can get his dogs to walk next to him in a heel, one of the things that we could do is actually to teach the dogs or help the dog practice be together. So I always do this when I bring a dog into my house and I'm not sure how it's going to get along. I take the dogs out for a walk. Now it's important we don't let either dog go in front because whoever's in front is in charge. So what I'd like to do is have human, dog, dog. So the dogs are the furthest point away from each other. And if the dogs are growling or lunging at each other, then we need to increase the distance. I don't think that's going to be the case. Let him stay up there for a minute and we'll use that as an opportunity to go through the directional commands. And then basically what we do is we go for a walk. And if he could also maybe watch the video about the walking, and you can give him some pointers, have him teaching his dog to stop and walk as well. And the idea is then if we can start taking them for a walk, this is not the stopping every couple of feet when the other dog. We can do that if we can get them to do that. But really what we want to do is just have them practice spending some time together in an activity where they're moving forward and they both feel relaxed. Don't let them play or interact even if they want to. We just want them to go because we might read it wrong. And they've gotten together off and been okay without a fence between, but I'm worried that there's something called leash aggression. I want to make sure that we just do everything to make sure we can to take care of this situation. So if they walk together for a week or so, then we might look for a neutral site where we can bring them together. If you guys' guts tell you that they're comfortable and their body language and tells you that they would like to play and they're feeling good about it. If we can get them to be buddies, that I think will greatly mitigate that problem out there. Now, the wild card is they have a little dog, and little dogs is Chihuahua, and a lot of people with little dogs kind of let the little dogs get away with more than we probably should. And dogs don't see size, and so if the Chihuahua is riling up the other dog, that might escalate the whole situation. Now, if we can get the Chihuahua to also walk, I wouldn't do them all together. I would walk her with his dog of her size, and for a week or so, and if they start feeling comfortable, then walk the Chihuahua together. But be careful about doing it in your yard or in their yard because that can be territorial. Now, we also, I don't know if I mentioned it for the, we talked about off camera, kind of blocking that fence with like maybe some plywood. Now, we call this maintenance. We'd also maybe want to do a little bit of maintenance here in the front because the house kind of looks down on the street a little bit, and the dogs like to get up on the furniture and look down. One of the rules is dogs are not going to be allowed in the furniture. We're going to talk about that in a sec. But if it's validating for me to get up and look out the window and I can bark and yell at people passing by or other dogs. Well, if we put in the inside of the window, so the dog can't scratch it off here. We're in Nebraska, so we have double pane windows. So we block off the bottom of these 3 windows, and if there's another window that they can go to do the same thing, for about a month or so. Now the dog runs there, and I can't see, I can hear somebody out there, but I can't. And we help them break that habit of getting into that. This is what we call maintenance. So like I said, we want to do that on the fence there. Now if we're doing that with You might want to try the walks, because walks would be cheaper than putting all that stuff in. But if we do put the plywood on, remember, have it tilted just slightly at the top, and we're going to get that PVC pipe slit, do a slit down it, and try to get one piece that runs around the whole thing. A lot of dogs don't climb, jump fences, they climb them. Well, the PVC pipe is round, so it doesn't allow the dog to get a good grip, and that will help make sure that everything stays safe. Okay, let's see, what else do we talk about? Fetching before a walk. A lot of people don't ever consider exercising the dog before they take it out for a walk. That's a wonderful thing to do, especially if you have a high energy dog like she is. So if we take her out maybe playing with a laser, or teach her to fetch, or whatever it is, and then we do that, let her come back inside, maybe fetch for 10 minutes, bring her inside, let her stop panting, and then take her for a walk, you'll find she's going to be a lot easier to deal with. Now, she doesn't like to bring the ball back. So if you go to doggonproblems.com, on the right side, if you're looking at this video on my website, on the right side there should be a search box. Type in either Coach or Apollo. These are a couple dogs that I worked with about 2 days ago, and I did a nice lengthy video where I went over the leave it command, the drop command, and the fetch command. I think I might even done stay. And so all things that these guardians would actually benefit from. Maybe we want to practice first the drop it with low value items. Then we're going to practice the leave it, which one thing kind of sets up the other. And you know, like I said, these are going to be controlled developing exercises, but also going to be very useful. All right, so since he's already here, we talked about rules. One of the rules is dog's not allowed to be on the furniture. Well, we can force the dog off, but that can sometimes create a growling situation. So what I do is I let him see I have a treat, I drop it on the floor. Now, of course, you're gonna be a stinker and take him, huh? Well, let's go this way. Go get that one. Hey, buddy. Off. So anytime you're going to use a treat or reward the dog, what we want to do is we want to say the command word, sit, sit, after the treat goes in the mouth or after the dog exhibits the behavior. Sit. Now this is the hand motion that I use to put a dog into a sit. Just a crescent over their head. As soon as they sit, I lower and let them lick it off, and I tickle them under the chin. Remember, when a dog feels good about itself, it lifts its nose is parallel to the ground and tilted up. So when all things are equal, try to pet them under the chin. You can pet them anywhere else you want, just don't ever pat them on top of the head. You can caress and scratch, don't ever pat. And avoid saying good dog or baby talking the dog. Instead, say whatever they're doing. If they sit, pet them and say sit. And I'm going to talk about passive training here in a sec. But basically, a lot of us say too many words to our dog, and dogs scan the first sound that they hear. So if we say good sit, good potty, good come, good lay down, good means everything, it means nothing. Okay, now another directional command, we have one for the furniture. Another one would be teaching dogs to leave a room on command. So we have a room, a portal to a room right here. I want to teach the dog to go out. So what I do is I toss a treat right outside the room, say out. The dog will come back. We'll see if he does. There we go. And we do it a second time. Out. So I'd like the guardians to have a handful of treats and go to every portal or every room in the house with each dog separately. Toss a treat through, let the dog go out and say out. Do this once, maybe just do it with one dog every day for a week. So alternate. But by the end of the week, you should be able to say out, and the dog runs out of the room, and you can give them the command. We can also do the same thing with the backyard. A lot of us only call our dog in from the backyard when they're being a nuisance, and that trains them not to listen to us because they're having fun, and when we call them, the fun ends. So every once in a while, go out there, call them. If they won't come all the way to the door, walk to the edge of your deck. Call them when they come to you, give them the treat and say come, and then walk back inside. Also, I'd like the guardians, they've been going out of their way to be fair. I don't want to be fair, I want to pay for performance. So she wants a treat right here. I'm going to show you how we do what I call coffee for closers. Sit. Sit. So she sat first, so she got the reward. Now, she was kind of ready to sit, so this is kind of cheating on her part. But I'd like you to, every once in a while, pull out a treat and just say come, or sit, or crash, or whatever the command is. Whoever comes and gives you that effort, we're going to pay just that dog. Now, if the dogs come and start giving you the same performance, then we can pay both dogs who are both performing the same way. Now, the dogs here are very good about asking for it. No, I would say asking for attention. This is kind of a demand for attention. So if your dog does this, now I have a handful of treats. I'm kind of triggering this. There you go. Here, buddy, you didn't get one. Sit. See, I got on my way to be fair. But basically, for the dogs, sit. If I create an incentive for them to want to come and perform, they're going to perform better and better. Now, I also like to do what I call passive petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is when the dog's nudging me like he was. If I pet him when he does that, I'm telling him, yes, you're the boss of me. You tell me what to do and I do it. And I think that's related to why she's so guard doggish in the backyard, is she thinks her position is to help the guardians. And she warns the guardians, the other dog's coming and you don't listen, so she has to go and ward and make the other dog move away. So for petting with a purpose, if the dog nudges me like this, I give the dog a command. Tell it to sit, come, lay down, whatever it is. If it's already sitting here, I might ask it to come sit here or lay down. It just has to do something to change its state. And as soon as it does, I pet him or give him the reward or the treat or whatever it is and say the command word after it. Now, even if you just want to pet the dog yourself, the dog's not demanding it, still ask the dog to sit before you pet it. Sit. That's the hand motion I use. Sit. Remember, always pet under the chin. The more that you do this, after a while, the dog's going to start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for attention. Because they're learning that this is the way to get attention. Most of us train our dogs to misbehave because that's when we give them attention. And for dogs, attention from a human is validated, even if it's angry attention. So dogs steal our slippers or chew things or whatever it is. And also, while on that subject, he was digging a little bit when we were doing the last video. That should be interpreted, digging or chewing or misbehaving as probably need more exercise. And that's why I talked to the guardians about starting an exercise journal and writing down the time and how much exercise it was. And then also the digging incidents, the fighting incidents, anything else that goes on, write down the time in as much detail. Do that for about a month. After a couple of weeks, you'll start seeing trends. If I don't give the dog enough exercise, this happens or that happens. And we can come up with a formula for success for them. So petting with a purpose, one of the things that we're going to find ourselves doing is reaching over and petting the dog when it demands it or for no reason because we're just used to it. So what I'd like the guardians to do, if the guardian comes and sees that I'm petting him and he's standing up, the guardian says, paycheck. I stop petting, sit, and then I can tell the person, actually ask the dog to sit, you missed it, and the dog stood up and I continued petting and that's okay, which it is. So the dog usually has to prepay or change its state for your attention. Now, that leads me to what I call passive training, and I'll do it right here. Sit. I didn't ask her to sit, she sat on her own. And so remember, you have a window of 3 seconds to correct or reward your dog. So if every time your dog comes to you, you pet it and say come. Well, most of the time we ask the dog to come, like I talked about earlier, it's the end of fun. Well, now every time I come to them, I hear the word come. Every time I sit down, I hear whatever it is. Not good sit, not sit, just sit. But the more that we do that, if we can get the dog to sit in here for all these, to ask for attention, on the walks it'll be easier. In the backyard it'll be easier. All these different situations. It seems ludicrously simple, but petting with a purpose and passive training are the two easiest things that any dog guardian can do to help create a healthy leader-follower dynamic and have dogs that not only are obedient, but respect you. Okay, now we also talked about some rules. One of the rules is not being allowed in the furniture. And so that's because the higher a dog sits, the more rank or social status they have. If we let a dog sit the same height, that's one of the ways we say that we're equals. So if the dog gets up on the furniture like this, what I do is, did I show this one in this video already? Sorry, I've gone through it a couple times. But throw that treat, yeah, I forgot I already did the directional commands. I'm going to let this lie because he's good footage. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? Passive training. Some of the other rules we talked about, we have a kind of an L-shaped couch here. If people are sitting on the couch, the dog should not be able to come and shove their way past. Also, I'd like the guardians to get in the habit of not walking around the dog, but walking through the dog if it's standing. Don't push it and don't walk weird into it. Just walk like it's not there. If you bump into the dog, it's the dog's job to recognize and defer and get out of our way because leaders don't defer to followers. Now, if we're eating food here in this room, I would say the dog's not allowed to be on the carpet. So that way, for dogs, there you go. For dogs, being within 7 feet of anyone who has a resource is a way of challenging for that resource. For that reason, sit. The dog should not be in the kitchen or in the dining room when we're eating dinner. They should be in the kitchen when we're preparing food. Now, how do we establish those? I went through the 4 escalating consequences that I've developed, and the guardians use those to good success. I just went home and came back, and we filmed this. They did dinner. And during dinner, it was hard. The dogs kept on trying to come back in. This is the first time they're trying to do that. Make sure that you're feeding the dogs after you eat. But before you do anything with your dogs, you can help your dogs succeed by actually doing a practice session. So for enforcing the rules around the dining room, what I would do is get a piece of bacon and microwave it, or a piece of roast beef, something that's going to have a strong smell. And so we bring it out and we set the table like we're actually going to eat a meal, and then we cut it into little pieces and sit down. If the dog comes in the room, we stop what we're doing and go address it. When we're eating an actual meal, we're distracted, we're thinking about that. And so our reaction time is slower. because we're trying to do something else. Well, if we do a practice run, we're not really interested in eating it, so we can react right away. And once the dog sit and lies down beyond the border, then we put the bacon away and we bring out a real meal. The dogs, I practice it, now they know what they want us to do. That's one of the things I went over with the Guardians off camera, was how I really fix dog problems. What I do is, if the dog's misbehaving, is I ask myself first, have we taught the dog how we want it to behave? If we haven't, then that's our responsibility, not theirs. So if the dog has not been taught how to behave, what I do is I reverse engineer the activity. I remove all the layers of it to make it as easy as possible. And then I help the dog practice, not in a real world situation, but during a practice session like we just talked about. And I break it down into individual steps and help the dog practice the first step over and over until the dog is automatically doing that step on its own. Only then do I go to the second step. And I repeat that process until I've gone through each individual step. And if the dog has a mishap, back up one step and practice again. Eventually, when the dog knows all the steps individually, bring them all together. Again, in a practice situation, the easiest capacity, but help the dog practice it. Only once the dog knows what to do we start bringing in other elements to help the dog practice and work our way back to the real world situation. If we're answering the door, the first thing we do is move the dog outside of the threshold to the door. The next thing we do is jiggle the deadbolt. Next thing, and maybe it's not even jiggle, maybe just reaching for the deadbolt. The dog gets up and starts coming. We stop, we go move the dog away for the boundary, using the third consequence. Walk backwards. Now we're doing that consequence, and you're doing the door exercise. Stop between each step. So left foot, right foot, pause. Quarter second. Left foot, right foot, pause. And if the dog starts coming forward, hiss and rush forward suddenly. And eventually the dog will learn, what they're asking me to do is to stay here while they answer the door. I like the dogs to be able to see the door, so if it is a creepy person, they try to do something, we have 2 security dogs that can be right there to help us. But the distance will help it be less intense, and that will help them perform better. But again, recreating that situation is helpful, so when we're coming home, instead of the guardians just coming on in, they can call or text each other. Hey, let's practice the door exercise. Great. I'm going to park on the street, I'm going to come to the door and act like I'm a guest. Now we've recreated, it looks like a real world situation, but we're ready for it, and we help the dogs practice one step at a time, and we don't have to worry about taking our time going through the individual steps because it's our life partner, and they're in on it with us. Okay, what else? Other rules that we went over, having to sit at the door before you go in or out of a door. 2 dogs, sitting is a more subordinate position. So if I go to the door and I say sit, tell them don't ask. If I say sit and neither one of them sits, I count to 3 in my head. If they don't sit, then I will walk away and sit down somewhere else and pull out a magazine or watch a little TV or whatever, wait 1 minute. After 1 minute, go back to the door and again I say it again. And if they don't sit, this time I walk away for 2 minutes, then for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. So each time they don't comply, I walk away for twice as long. Now, let's say I tell them to sit and we're at 4 minutes where I say sit for him, he sits down and she doesn't. Well, I open the door and let him out and not let her out and walk away. So we're going to pay for performance of what I want, not just because he gets it, she gets it. All right, let me think what else. Don't have to think, I have it here. Let me see. Remember the light switch on, light switch off. So if I'm petting the dog and it's doing, because I pet it with a purpose or whatever, and the dog puts its paw on top of my arm, that's telling me what to do. As soon as it does that, I stop petting it. We could also, one of the Guardians' questions was, how do we teach the dogs to stop barking at the door? Well, I use passive training, so when the dog is barking, I would assign a command word like woof or speak or whatever it is. And then once we get the dog who can speak on command, now we can do the flip side of that and teach them to turn it off. So if the dog's here, I say speak, it speaks, I give it the treat and I say the word speak. Then I say silent. Wait 1 second and give it the treat. And the dog just doesn't know to be silent, but it just doesn't know to do anything. And then after I repeat, and then I go back to bark, and then silent, bark and silent. And then I start elongating the silent, maybe 1 second of silent, 2 seconds. And eventually the dog now, because I put it in context, understands what I mean when I say silence or quiet. Otherwise, if we're just yelling at a dog that's barking, they just think, cool, now we're both barking. All right, let me see. Directional commands went through. The jumping exercise, I actually, when I just came back, we actually went through that. If you forget how to do that, let me know. I can share videos on that for you as well. And then the loose leash class, like I said, I'd like to see if we can get the dogs in our loose leash class or do an in-home or dog behavior training or daycare training or whatever it is. The correction worked. She did really well on the walk, but it'd be even better if they would just listen on their own. Let me see. I think that's pretty much it. Make sure the Guardians are eating first. We went through a whole eating ritual, which will help them. Remember to dump his food if he doesn't eat everything, and then put the empty bowl back down on the floor. And for him, remember for the food, try adding in some warm water with the food, swirling it around. If that's not enough, maybe we do the chicken broth and freeze them in the ice cube tray. But I think for him, increasing the temperature of food is going to make it more appealing. Plus, he's an older dog. It's a little bit more fluid. It's better for them. All right, well, I can't think of anything else, and my brain is awash because I've done this 3 times. Hopefully this time it saves. This is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.